Good morning. My name is Dr. Julie Two Moon, and I woke up this morning prompted to think about exercise. So let's talk about exercise for a minute. Now, movement is awesome, and in fact, increases our longevity, enhances how we feel, can improve mood, can improve stress response. All of those things can be improved by exercise. But we need to talk about what is ideal in terms of exercise and in the context of what we're doing in our modern life. So I saw a video this morning that was about a guy who'd created a class that he calls Nappercise. And the reason for it is that he noticed that people were actually so exhausted and so stressed. And he wanted to give them a chance to take a break, which is also really interesting that he recognized how much that need is. So what he did is he created this class where you stretch for 15 minutes and then you lay down on a massage table with pillows and blankets, and it's all awesome. And then you rest. So you rest. That's part of the class, is that you rest. And so the class is such an interesting idea because he's absolutely right. Everyone is so tired. They're so exhausted. And yet he probably recognized, I didn't say this, but he probably recognized that what was happening is that people are so tired and so exhausted, and yet they're signing themselves up for exercise classes and coming to these classes and pushing through the exhaustion and then going back to their busy life. Now, I used to do CrossFit, so I understand the mantra, I understand the philosophy. The philosophy is this, that high intensity exercise helps mitigate the stress response. Okay, that would be true if we weren't already stressed to begin with. So people advocate, our Paleolithic ancestors, they did high intensity activity and it kept them, young and lean and strong and feeling more vital. Which I'll totally agree with. But we're not living our Paleolithic ancestors' lifestyle. A couple years ago, I was talking to a guy, and he said that in the 1970s, he'd had a chance to go to Fiji. And he actually got to hang out with the indigenous people in Fiji and experience what their lifestyle was like. And he said, it's amazing. They'd all pool together their efforts, work for a couple hours, earlier in the day, kind of making sure that they had everything they needed for to feed themselves, etc., all their supplies that they needed for the day. And then the day was kind of done and they would sit, they would sing songs, they would tell stories, they would nap, they would play, they would just enjoy themselves. That was their lifestyle. So we can assume, because in Fiji, they're pretty remote, they've been doing that for a long time, that this is the lifestyle of our Paleolithic ancestors. So our Paleolithic ancestors were not working 8 to 12 hours a day and then compensating for that by doing high intensity exercise. This is really important because a lot of advocates of this will say, you'll feel so much better, which is true. You do the high intensity workout and then your endorphin levels rise and your mind feels clear and your mood feels clear and you start to feel so much better. Totally agree. I'm all in for how that affects you. However, the thing that you're not recognizing, or that nobody's maybe talking to you about, because pretty much every blog on exercise says that this is the case and that more exercise is actually better if you're feeling more stressed, is that the stress response created by the exercise is also very real. And so the refractory period after the exercise is in fact creating a scenario, sorry, I'm gonna move out of the sun a little bit, is creating a scenario by which your body still feels stressed. And so you're invoking a stress response to mitigate a stress response. And the reason why you're feeling so good is that you got a whole bunch of endorphins released, but a stress response is a stress response. Now, the effect that stress has on our body in a chronic situation is that it causes rapid aging. It causes our cell membranes to become more rigid. It's harder to get nutrients in and out of the cells. The mitochondria get taxed. They don't make as much energy. We start to shuttle nutrients around in weird ways because our body perceives, our biology perceives that it has to keep responding to a chronic stress, and that wears down so many systems. In fact, that can even lead to, the chronic stress response can lead to our inability to keep calcium in solution, and then the calcium starts to deposit and Some of the places it likes to deposit are in our arteries, in our thyroid, in our joints. And so hence that can actually precipitate leading us down the path of heart disease and form plaque formation in the arteries. Just as an example, that can also be a precipitating factor in the future towards dementia, because plaque formation in the arteries in the brain can contribute to memory loss. So you have to think of it in this big picture. And the fact is that if you wake up and it's a day you're meant to go exercise, let's say it was on your schedule, if you really ask yourself, I mean, this is the thing you have to do, you have to check in with yourself. If you wake up and think like, how do I feel today? If the answer in any way, like in the most remote place that you're speaking from is, man, am I tired? I'm so tired. Like, I wish I could take today off. I wish I could just lay back down. I wish I could just sit down and read a book. I wish I could just not do anything. Then the last thing you need to be doing is going and doing some high intensity exercise. You know what would be great is a 15-minute walk outside, or 15 minutes of gentle stretching followed by 10 minutes of quiet sitting. It is not the essential to keep you moving at all times. We are so over obligated. We rarely have time where our brain is not engaged. We rarely have time that our nervous system does not think it's meant to keep responding to some next thing. That doing high intensity exercise is not going to make you live longer. It's going to make your stress response elevated. You need to move. I will totally agree with that. But in the case of a lifestyle that is burdened by unremitting stress, moving more and harder is not necessarily the remedy for that stress. I said I did CrossFit years ago. I did CrossFit for like 2.5 years until I finally took myself down because I pushed and pushed and pushed. And you know what happened? I was injured all the time. And it wasn't because of poor training. I was actually very strong. It was because I was ignoring the stress response. I was ignoring it. And finally, my body said, enough is enough. Now, that made me back out. But I remember when I was in CrossFit, being a Chinese medicine specialist, I remember I would sometimes ask these coaches who were really fit, for all intents and purposes, they could do miraculous things. I would ask them like, hey, can I see your tongue? Can I feel your pulses? And every single one of them had significant spleen and kidney deficiency. They just had muscles that could let them ignore it. And so they were burning through resources that they actually didn't have, and they were mitigating that by using endorphins to keep themselves going. The key to longevity is to achieve life balance. The Taoists talk about not going to any of the extremes, so not being way over in the super, super engaged mode and not being way over in the engaged in nothing mode, but being like in that happy middle. And that middle is gentle. That middle is aware and it is engaged, but it's not engaged in a hyper responsive way. The Taoists talk about not kind of engaging in life in that exacerbated, stress-filled, hyper place of engagement. And within that context lies longevity and balance and hope and equanimity. So napper size is a great idea. You can do that for yourself, right? You could do 15 minutes of stretching and then take a lay down rest. And I'll tell you what, you don't have to feel guilty about it. I'll tell you something else. If you implore that method of healing in the context of deeply nourishing, simple and easy to digest foods, in the context of good self-care, in the context of gentle methods of detox like massage and dry skin brushing and castor oil packs and sauna and coffee enemas, if you replace the simple nutrients that are missing, not taking like crazy vitamin combinations that are now for sale everywhere, but taking very simple formulations of exactly what your body is missing, I guarantee you not only will you get stronger, but you'll lose weight if you need to lose weight, and you'll feel balanced and you'll feel hopeful and your body will feel quiet, and you'll be able to connect to that inner place where spirit talks to you every day and where your biology feels connected again. because this modern way of pushing through everything leaves us feeling disconnected. And I tell you, I see it all the time. And that disconnect manifests as anxiety and fatigue and frustration and fear and a sense of not being able to really enjoy the life that you're living. And that is not what I want for you. I want you to feel present and connected and powerful and so totally here in this existence that it is exciting and joyful to wake up. So when you wake up tomorrow, I am going to give you the task of asking yourself, how do I feel? And I want you to open yourself up to whatever that truthful answer is. And if the answer is, oh, I feel tired. Oh, I just don't want to do anything today. Then I want you to carve out that time for yourself where you choose to do nothing. And you appreciate those moments of stillness. And you don't berate yourself for not being out there doing something, for not having gotten off the couch that day. You don't berate yourself for not having done your workout. Because I'll tell you what, until we live that lifestyle like those people in Fiji, like our ancestors did, we have no reason to berate ourselves for not doing enough, because from my perspective, we've never stopped doing. My name is Dr. Julie Toomoon. I believe in your healing. I believe that you are a divine example of creation at its utmost miraculous. And I want you to be able to understand that so deeply and inherently in your cells that you walk through life every day experiencing the magical nature of your biology instead of trying to constantly tame it and bring it in line with stressful techniques. Have a beautiful day.